Before we get into the video, guys, I have a new Discord server. The link to join this will be in the description. We will be able to talk about different stuff with college basketball and do Q&As, and I'll announce my videos and stuff like that. So make sure you click the link to join the Discord server. Let's get into the video. What's up, guys? It's Alex here, and welcome to the Bracketology update for March 7th. This is the last day of the regular season for pretty much every Division I college basketball team, and we are only 8 days away from Selection Sunday. Man, I am super pumped. This is going to be a great day of college basketball. Conference tournaments are getting ready to start up in the next week, and I'll try to be doing daily uploads and stuff like that. Make sure you join my Discord. As I mentioned at the beginning, I'm going to put the link to join it in the description, so make sure you check that out. But man, there's going to be a ton of movement along the brackets. I know you can't really see too much right here just because it's updated every single day. So like the only movements and stuff are like conference tournaments, like Northern Iowa getting upset in their conference tournament. So as you can see up there in the Midwest Regional, they are a play-in game now as an at-large bid. Most likely they'll probably fall off and not make the tournament since they lost and got really destroyed in their conference tournament by Drake, who was an 8 seed. They were like, it was like a 21-point game or something like that. But you need to stay checked out with the different college basketball games that are going on to make sure you're staying up to date. And I will give you an up-to-date bracketology every single day leading up to Selection Sunday. And then I'll be doing my conference tournament videos or tournament prediction videos and stuff in the next couple of days. So make sure you subscribe for that. But taking a look at the bracket itself, in the Midwest Regional, we still have Kansas as the one. And then the play-in game is Arizona State and Northern Iowa. And then Bradley is new to the field as the MVC representative. Right now they're the highest team remaining. Remains to be seen if they actually make the tournament, but they are paired with Kentucky right now, which Kentucky will be playing Florida here in the next few hours or the next hour. I'm recording this around like noon today, so this is before any of the other games happen. So my predictions and stuff, don't roast me and stuff for making fun of me for getting games wrong just based off of what's happening here today. I'll update the bracketology with all the results from today's games tomorrow, so make sure you subscribe for that. Kentucky will be playing without Ashton Hagans today against Florida. He's not playing for personal reasons, so Kentucky probably will end up losing that game, so that's kind of an expected thing. Then down here in the East Regional, we have San Diego State remaining the 1 seed. Matchups to watch out for are Butler and Stephen F. Austin, and then Auburn and East Tennessee State. Those look really good, and then Illinois and Texas. Then over here in the South Regional, we have Baylor as the 1 seed. Then Winthrop is new to the field as the 16 seed. I think they're facing off with Radford for the auto bid in that conference. I think that's going to be tomorrow when that game's happening. And then we have Tulsa still remaining the American Athletic representative. Don't know if they're going to get the number 1 seed in the American tournament, but that remains to be seen. If they don't win that tournament, they're not going to be in the actual NCAA tournament, so that could open up an at-large bid for another team. I think Cincinnati's out of the tournament right now as a result of that. Then down here in the West Regional, we have Gonzaga remaining the 1 seed there. Then we have Xavier and Indiana as the last teams in that play-in game. And then if we take a look at the bubble itself, last 4 byes are Rutgers, Texas, Stanford, and UCLA. And then the last 4 in those playing games, as I mentioned earlier, are Arizona State, Xavier, Indiana, and Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa is that last team in. They probably won't make the tournament if I'm being honest. First 4 out are Cincinnati, who will probably be in the tournament once Tulsa loses or gets out of that automatic qualifier spot. Then we have Utah State, who's going to be in the Mountain West Championship game against San Diego State. Basically, they win and you're in, you get the automatic bid. If you don't win, Utah State probably won't make the tournament. Then we have Richmond and NC State. Then the next 4 out are Wichita State, Purdue, Memphis, and South Carolina. So I am doing an NCAA tournament ticket giveaway. If you guys have been watching my videos, you know that I'm doing this. But how you enter, or I'll be giving away 2 first-round NCAA tournament tickets, 2 winners, 1 ticket each. If all you have to do is get me to 5,000 subscribers by March 17th, which is the start of the first 4 games. We have 10 days to do it. We're picking up some time here. We are at 4,390, which means we still need 610. I think we can do it, especially once the actual tournament video gets posted on Sunday. That's usually, last year, that video got almost 120,000 views, so hopefully we'll get some subscribers from that. But if you are not subscribed already, make sure you subscribe. How do you enter the tournament ticket giveaway? It will be in the description, but I'll go ahead and repeat it again here. All you have to do is subscribe to the channel with post notifications on. Take a screenshot of you being subscribed to the channel. Follow me on Instagram at AlexPrice24. Then DM me a screenshot of you being subscribed and tell me what your favorite college basketball team is and the closest NCAA tournament location to you, and then I'll send you a message saying that you're entered and that you're verified at or whatever, saying that you're actually in the giveaway, and then I'll be doing the video and the giveaway on March 17th. So make sure you subscribe for that. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into my actual bracketology predictions up here in the Midwest Regional, which I will be going to in the Elite Eight. Man, I am so excited for that, and it's probably about an 80 to 85% likelihood that I am going to the Sweet 16 games there. Hopefully they don't get canceled because of the CV stuff, or I guess I can say CV. I can't say the actual name of the disease or whatever, else I'll get demonetized because of YouTube standards and stuff. But I will be going to those games, so I am super excited for that. But we have Kansas beating the winner of NC Central and Robert Morris. I think that one's pretty obvious. Then I'm going to go with Houston beating USC. Then I really like Vermont here. They're getting some respect as a 12 seed, but I really like BYU. They're kind of like Creighton in that they're one of the best offensive efficiency teams in the nation, and that usually tends to help you out in the NCAA tournament. I like them over Vermont. And then I really like Liberty this season, but I think that Wisconsin's going to get the victory just because Liberty's been struggling. They're in their conference championship against Lipscomb. If they win that game, they're in as a automatic qualifier, and they'll probably be a 13 seed. But if they lose, they most likely will not be in the tournament because they did lose to Lipscomb, and they have a few bad losses on their resume that probably won't get them into the tournament. But they are not playing as good as they did earlier in the season, so that's how I'm going to go with Wisconsin getting the victory there. And I mean, Wisconsin's a better team. I'm going to go with Michigan getting the victory over Arizona State, who I think would beat Northern Iowa. Kentucky will beat Bradley. I'm going to go with Virginia and Tony Bennett moving on here past Stanford. Then I'm going to go with Seton Hall moving on past North Dakota State. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we do have Kansas moving on past Houston. Then I'm going to go with BYU moving on here as a slight 5-4 upset. I think BYU is not getting the national respect that they deserve. They did beat Gonzaga, and I think that they could win and move on to the Sweet 16 here against Wisconsin. They're going to go with Kentucky beating Michigan here. Kentucky, if they can get Ashton Higgins back, I think which he's supposed to be back in time for like the postseason tournaments and stuff. I think that they could get the victory there over Michigan. Then I'm going to go with Miles Powell and Seton Hall moving on here past Virginia. That's either going to be a game that's decided by Virginia where the score is like 50 points, or a game that's decided by Seton Hall where Seton Hall scores like 70 or 80. That's going to be a pretty interesting matchup to see. But I do think Seton Hall will end up winning that one. Then we have Kansas beating BYU to move on to the Sweet 16, or to the Elite Eight, not the Sweet 16. I'm going to go with Kentucky moving on here past Seton Hall. Kentucky, if they played like they did in the first half against Tennessee, they could win the national championship, as I mentioned in the last few bracketologies I've been doing. But if they play like they did in the second half against Tennessee, they're probably going to get upset in like the first or second round. But I think that they can get a hold of themselves and move on here to the Elite Eight. They have the talent and coaching to do that. But I think their run's going to come to an end there with Kansas moving on to the Final Four. Then for the East Regional, we have San Diego State moving on here as the 1 seed past Eastern Washington. Texas Tech with Chris Beard, I think, will be able to move on here past St. Mary's. Then I'm going to go with an upset pick right here, Stephen F. Austin. They've only lost 3 times the entire season. They got the road win against Duke earlier in the season. I think that they're one of the best teams one of the best mid-major teams. I don't know if they're one of the best teams in the nation, but I think they're going to surprise some people in the tournament, kind of like East Tennessee State. Then I'm going to go with Maryland here with Anthony Cohn and Jalen Smith moving on past Akron. I think they can definitely get the victory there. They're going to go with East Tennessee State moving on past Auburn. Auburn has kind of fallen recently. They are not winning games. They just lost at home to Texas A&M. And then East Tennessee State, if you guys have been watching my bracketologies, you know I'm super high on them as a mid-major. I think they get the upset here over Auburn. Then I am going to go with Duke over Belmont here as the 3 over 14. I'm going to go with Illinois with Iota Sumu moving on past Texas, and then Dayton with Obi Toppin, player of the year in my eyes. I think he'll be able to move on past Wright State. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we do have San Diego State moving on here past Texas Tech. Though I can see Texas Tech pulling off the upset there, I do think San Diego State with Malachi Flynn will be able to move on. Then we have Stephen F. Austin here. I think they pull off the upset here and move on to the Sweet 16 over Maryland. Stephen F. Austin's going to surprise some people, plus Maryland's lost like 3 of their last 4 games or something like that, and like 2 in a row. They are not looking like a team that has momentum moving into the postseason tournament, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. But then I'm going to go with Duke here beating East Tennessee State. This one is honestly a 50-50 matchup for me. I think in my last bracketology that I did with the CBS one, I think I had East Tennessee State moving on, but they did just struggle against Western Carolina at home. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. I think East Tennessee State's definitely one of the best mid-major teams in the nation. It's just a matter of if they can beat Duke. I don't think they can. Then we have Dayton moving on past Illinois. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, I'm going to go with a huge upset here and pick Stephen F. Austin to move on as the 12 seed to the Elite Eight, having the huge 12-1 upset over San Diego State. San Diego State's been struggling as of late, especially in the Mountain West tournament. I think Stephen F. Austin could definitely pull off the upset there and move on to the Elite Eight. But then I'll have Dayton with Obi Toppin moving on past Duke. Dayton's supporting cast has been doing really good recently. They are on an absolute tear right now. They're the number 3 team in the nation for a reason, challenging San Diego State for that final 1 spot, according to Joe Lunardi. I think they get the victory there, and then I think they get the victory to move on to the Final Four here against Kansas. Then if we move on to the South Regional here, I'll go and switch the camera over there. We do have Baylor moving on past Winthrop, and then we have Providence beating LSU. I don't think Providence would struggle too much with LSU. Those two teams are trending in the complete opposite directions at this point. Ohio State will be able to move on past Tulsa, I do believe. Then we have New Mexico State moving on past Oregon. This is a complete 50-50 matchup for me, but I'll kind of go with what I've been doing in my recent bracketologies and keep that alive with New Mexico State moving on. They haven't lost since like December 15th. They're on like an 18 or 19 game winning streak. They are a team to watch out for. They almost beat Auburn last year in the tournament, and that would have stopped Auburn's run to the Final Four. I think they are a team to watch out for this year. Then we have Iowa beating UCLA with Luka Garza. He is number 2 in my Player of the Year contender rankings. It's basically a 2-man race between him and Obi Toppin for Player of the Year. Then we have Villanova moving on past Hofstra. Rutgers, I think, can spring the 10-7 upset, and Arizona did suspend Chase Jeter, who was a highly recruit out of high school, but he has not been shown much at all in the college game. Then I think that Florida State will be able to move on past Rutgers. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we do have Baylor beating Providence, so I can see Providence springing the upset there. Providence have been getting tons of quality wins recently, and Baylor just struggled at home against Texas Tech. But Baylor, they've only lost 4 games. I think 4 games. Actually, I don't know. I think they've lost like 3 games. I think it was to Washington, then Kansas, and TCU. That sounds right. I think they've lost 3 games. I think they'll be able to get the victory there over Providence. Then we have Ohio State here beating New Mexico State. Ohio State with Caleb Hassan. I think they're turning it around. They were struggling really bad in late January or early February, but they are getting some quality wins now. I think they get the victory there over New Mexico State. Then we have Iowa with Luka Garza pulling off the 6-3 here. Then Florida State, I think, will be able to beat Rutgers. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, we do have Baylor losing to Ohio State. I am going to put another upset here over a 1 seed. I'm going to put Ohio State here as the 5/1. Ohio State's playing really good basketball recently, and I'm kind of worried about Baylor if the shots don't fall. I'm going to go with an upset there with Ohio State moving on. I think this is the first time I had Baylor losing in the Sweet 16. Then I'm going to go with Florida State moving on past Iowa. And then for a spot in the Final Four, I am going to go with Florida State moving on. That team did struggle on the road against Notre Dame, but they've been getting some quality wins as of late, and I think they're tied for the lead in the ACC. If they can win that conference tournament, they're going to come into the NCAA tournament with a lot of momentum. I think they'll be able to get the job done. Then in the West Regional, we do have Gonzaga moving on past the winner of Prairie View, A&M, and Siena. I'm going to go with Florida moving on past West Virginia. I've just completely written off West Virginia at this point. No matter who they're paired up with in the NCAA tournament, I am not going to pick them to win their game. That I'm telling you that right now. And we have Penn State moving on here past Yale. Creighton, I think, will be able to beat North Texas. Then I think that Colorado will be able to beat the winner of Xavier and Indiana, which I have no idea who to win that game, to be honest, at this point. I'm going to go with Michigan State here, moving on past Colgate. Marcus Howard and Marquette will be able to beat Oklahoma, and then Louisville will beat UC Irvine. I know I'm kind of going with chalk here. But then we got Gonzaga moving on past Florida, though Florida, they'll probably get the win against Kentucky and move to like an 8 or a 7 seed today, so it'll be interesting to see where Joe Lunardi ends up seeding them tomorrow. Then we have Creighton here. They're one of the best offensive teams in the nation. I think they get the victory there and move on to the Sweet 16. Then Michigan State with Cassius Winston. I don't think they'll struggle too much against Colorado. Then we got Louisville moving on here. They're just a more complete team than Marcus Howard and Marquette are at this point in the season. Then I'm going to go with Creighton pulling off the 4/1. I think they'll be able to beat Gonzaga here with their offensive efficiency. I know I'm really high behind like Creighton. If you guys have been watching my recent bracketologies, you would know that. I really like Creighton this season. Then we're going to go with Michigan State moving on here past Louisville. I think Michigan State is turning it on when it matters with Cassius Winston and Xavier Tillman, and then their supporting cast, kind of like Dayton. They are turning it on at the right time, too. Rocket Watts is kind of leading that next group. They are starting to put it together and show why they were the preseason #1 team. Then for a spot in the Final Four, I'm going to go with Michigan State here, moving on past Creighton and into the Final Four. I think Michigan State, as I just mentioned, they're a complete team at this point. They are surging. They are moving up the seed lines. They had fallen to like a 6 at one point. They are now back up to a 3 and threatening to get back on the 2 line. But then for a spot in the national championship game, Kansas versus Dayton, I'm going to go with Dayton pulling off the upset here and moving on, getting their revenge. I know I've been picking Kansas in the last few bracketologies I've been doing, but the #1 overall seed hasn't won the tournament and I think like 3 or 4 years or something like that. I think that streak continues here. I think Dayton with Obi Toppin move on to the national championship game, which I would love to see. Then I think that Cassius Winston and Michigan State are going to move on here to the national championship game, and then to win the actual national championship game themselves, I'm going to go with Michigan State. They're a more battle-tested team, and Tom Izzo gets his first championship. Actually, his second championship, I think. I can't remember if he was the coach or not back in 2000. But either way, they're going to get Michigan State's first national championship and the Big Ten's first national championship since 2000. I think they get the victory here and win the national championship. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you did enjoy it, and make sure you enter the NCAA tournament ticket giveaway. Make sure you join the Discord server. Let me know your own comments and predictions and stuff like that in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all later.